David Brophy was born in Dublin, and he'll be familiar to music lovers as the conductor of outstanding ensembles such as the RTE National Symphony Orchestra.
When you stand in front of a big orchestra and they make a huge sound, that's one of the most exhilarating things I think you can do in your life.
David is close to home for his walk today. He'll start along the quiet outskirts of Dublin and then into the hustle and bustle of central city life. En route, he will take in some of the city's most renowned landmarks before arriving into Dublin port.
I mean, I'm looking forward to discovering what I don't know about this part of the city. I'm one of those people who thinks they know Dublin really well, and I know all the nooks and crannies around town, but I'm sure I'm in for some surprises today, and hopefully I'll find out something about this great city of ours that I didn't know.
David is starting his walk today on the banks of the River Liffey in Chapelizod, which is less than half an hour's drive from the centre of the capital. He'll follow the river eastwards, taking in the Irish National War Memorial Gardens at Island Bridge, before arriving into the formal gardens of the Irish Museum of Modern Art. He'll continue east to pass through the historic Liberties and into the peaceful Dublin Garden enclosed behind Dublin Castle. For the last part of his journey, David will travel by boat into the heart of Dublin port where the river meets the sea. The walk and boat journey are approximately 10 kilometres in total. The village of Chapelizod takes its name from the Irish Chapelizod, or Isolde's chapel. Legend has it that this was the spot where Tristan asked Princess Isolde for her hand in a marriage which bound them to imperishable love. The walk follows the wooded valley of the River Liffey, home to some of Ireland's premier rowing clubs. The river and trail merge into the Irish National War Memorial Gardens, one of Europe's most famous gardens, and the site of key peacemaking ceremonies in recent Irish history. The swish of oars on water is complemented by an unexpected voice from a riverside sound installation.
Robert James Thompson, Robert John Thompson, Robert John Thompson, Robert W. Thompson, William George Thompson, Reuben Thompson, Richard 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 Seward Thompson, Robert Thompson, Robert Thompson, Robert Thompson, Robert Thompson.
It's quite something to stumble across that sound installation, Voices of Memory, on the south bank here at the Liffey, in the War Memorial Gardens. And initially you're struck by the fact that, well, why is the woman repeating the same name over and over again? I think there was at least 6 Richard Thompsons, until you realise actually each Richard Thompson is a different person. And it's only at that point you realise that, well, all these individual people, just over 49,000 Irish men and women were killed in the First World War, and each individual life must have had such an impact on their family, and there must have been nobody in this country who wasn't affected in some way by those who were killed in the First World War. Hi, Margaret.
You're very welcome, Dave, here to the
Thanks
National War Memorial Gardens in Island Bridge.
To understand more about the origins of the Irish National War Memorial Gardens, David meets the Chief Park Superintendent, Margaret Gormley.
Total gardens here are over 50 acres, running along the River Liffey and only 2 miles from the centre of Dublin.
I can't believe how quiet it is. Stunning.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and I think that was part of the original design. It was an area of sombre reflection, but you also have the River Liffey here that gives that extra lovely, oasis away from the city.
Margaret, you'll forgive the pun, but things were not all so rosy in the history of the National War Memorial Gardens. I'm fascinated by the difficulty around the official opening of the gardens. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
I suppose the politics in Ireland at that time was quite controversial, to be commemorating people who died in the First World War who fought with the English. Well, if you even think in the 1920s when they started fundraising for the gardens, they raised over £50,000 in those days. And a lot of people were fighting. We had a War of Independence here in Ireland, and yet there was £50,000 to commemorate the Irish people who had died in the First World War.
Margaret, this is beautiful here. Tell us about the history of the design of this place.
Well, the gardens here were designed by Sir Edwin Lutyens, who was a British architect and very important person within the whole commemorative movement in the UK at that time in the 1920s and 30s. They actually brought Irish soldiers and English soldiers work side by side. So even in the building of the gardens, it was, part of a commemorative theme to bring people together, to build bridges, literally. Everything here is symbolic, even the lovely fountains. There's 2 fountains, and you might look at them and say, what does that remind you of?
Yes.
A candle.
Of course,
And
yes,
it's
you see it
the
now.
water is the wax dripping down onto the
Beautiful.
saucer.
In the midst of the elegant gardens are discreetly designed granite book rooms, which house the original Irish memorial records.
What we have here is the wonderful Harry Clark records of the 49,000 people who died in the First World War. And I think, very, very important how these were brought together. But if you look at the detail, Harry Clark was obviously very famous for book illustrations and stained glass windows. But what we have is beautiful detail here. And it's very symbolic of the various Irish battalions that were in the war. Some of these people were totally forgotten, but they weren't forgotten here in the War Memorial Gardens. This might be the only record for some family. There might be no grave, no headstone, but at least they're recorded here.
I wonder, is there a Brophy in this book, or would it
Well,
be...
actually, on this book here, we have a number of John Brophies here.
Oh.
From County Cork and Kilkenny.
There's no Cork. Dublin is on my family. Well, my dad's side, they're all Dublin. But I'm sure one of those Brophies is in some way related to my family. Thanks.
David makes his way from the calm of the Memorial Gardens to the artistic gardens of the Irish Museum of Modern Art, known as IMA. The Art Museum itself is housed in the finest 17th century building in Ireland, the Royal Hospital Kilmainham, originally built to house retired soldiers. However, it is the many outdoor art trails which are of interest to David on his walk today.
So I've just come from the National War Memorial Gardens, and I've arrived here at the Irish Museum of Modern Art at the Royal Hospital Kilmainham. And the first thing I see straight away is this beautiful tree planted here behind me by Joseph Beuys when he visited many years ago. I suppose his philosophy of art was that all art should be accessible to everybody. And I'm looking forward to interacting with both the art but also the nature around this fantastic part of the city.
IMA guide Barry Keogh introduces David to some of the sculpture on the art trail surrounding the museum.
So here there's a great example of where nature and art kind of meet on the trails, so the art trail and the tree trail. There's a great display here of the work of Aranda Spirito Santo. And he takes these stones, basically, and he corrects them. They're called corrections. And it's kind of that idea that how can you perfect nature or improve upon it? And so he makes these beautiful geometric shapes out of big natural lumps of stone. And what's really nice, of course, when you put artwork out into the world or outside, it becomes patinated by the weather.
The elements,
and you see,
the elements get their hands on it.
Even the birds have left their marks. But these are really beautiful here. You can see all these fantastic trails left by the snails and the slugs.
I see them, yeah, fantastic.
And so the artwork kind of takes on another life because it's out here outside in the nature. So you can see how beautiful the gardens are, really, and what's quite incredible when you look out across it and just see how the pattern is laid out, it's actually in the form of a Union Jack.
A Union Jack?
So you have like the George's Cross up here and a cross.
Oh, you
and
can
then
see
the
it now,
Cross
actually.
this way, yeah.
Fantastic.
But then you've other diagonals in it as well, which kind of disguises it a little bit. But generally it's a
I
Union
presume
Jack
that was by
form.
design, or
I think that's by design, yeah. See how beautiful the formal gardens are and the way they're laid out. It's beautiful, you know, geometric pattern. But they really were market garden producing food for the hospital here and for all the old pensioned soldiers. And you have these beautiful, along this side, you have these amazing apple trees. And there's a really nice story. One of the cleaners who was working here a few years ago told me he took some of the apples home to his sister and he said, oh, eat those, and she bit into them and went, oh my God, you got these from the Royal Hospital, because when they were little kids, they used to, when the place was closed up for years, they used to climb in over the walls and steal the apples.
Steal the apples, we all did that.
So she had a kind of a taste memory from biting into the apple.
Well, thank you very much for sharing some of your vast knowledge of the grounds here surrounding the Royal Hospital Kilmainham, and also to do with the art from the Image collection. Much appreciated.
You're very welcome.